Hi, podcast listeners. This is your host, Jenna Pecor, and I'm so excited to bring you our episode for today. If you are a first-time listener or a listener who has been with me since day one and you love what I'm doing, I want to encourage you to support the podcast by giving a small donation. I love bringing you new faces and interviews, but it does take time and resources to do it. And any support you'd be willing to give goes towards website upkeep, travel, time, and costs, and would help me greatly to keep doing what I'm doing. Give your support by going to paypal.me/Faces of Grand Prairie. Hello, listeners. Today I'm bringing you an interview with a business owner, a PhD, a wife, and a mother, Dr. Rhonda Brown-Crowder. You can find her on Facebook by searching Dr. Rowe on the go, and boy, is she ever. I became Facebook friends with her a few years ago and was struck by her immense positivity and smile, and just loved watching her adventures as a city volunteer and parent of a special needs child in the Grand Prairie School District. Dr. Rowe is an everyday woman who lives in our city, and I loved being able to talk to her about her path towards earning her PhD, her civic involvement, and why it's important to be an active member of our community, and her parenting journey and raising a beautiful son with autism. Talking with her lifted my spirits, and I know it will do the same for you. And now here's my interview with Dr. Rhonda Brown-Crowder. Okay, so good morning, and we are here this morning at the Ruthie Jackson Center, and I'm with Dr. Rhonda Brown-Crowder. Good morning.
Good morning.
We were supposed to be at the Playground Adventures, and the rain decided to wipe us out from that. Which, I mean, it's never terrible to be at the Ruthie Jackson Center. They've got new furniture in here, which is beautiful, but I was really hoping to get over there.
I know, it's amazing over there.
Yeah.
Definitely go.
You've been really involved in that process. One of the reasons we chose to go over there is because of your involvement. So you've been over there to visit.
Actually, I've been over there, I guess, about 3 or 4 times. We did a couple of VIP plays before the opening day, and have done a few interviews over there for Channel 8 and some of the others.
Oh, wait, I saw that. That's awesome.
It was awesome.
WFAA loves Grand Prairie.
Yes.
They always do stuff on. I see, Mayor Jensen over there a lot doing interviews.
I know, he's amazing too.
So were you a part of, were you on a committee to get that?
Yes, I was involved, or I still am involved in the advisory committee. And the thing that I liked about our city is the fact that when they said we want to do this for our special needs community, they didn't just go and say, okay, let's put this there and that there and that. This looks good. They wanted to make sure that the equipment that they selected, the whole layout of the park, was something that was really going to be something that we as a special needs community could use. And so they invited me, Rick Harold, former Parks Director, invited me to be a part of that committee.
Guy.
I know, it's awesome. As a parent, to give feedback on that. So here we are 5 years later.
Wow.
And we finally got our park.
That's exciting.
Yes.
So you say you're a parent. So you have a son. His name is Caleb, and he is all over the place just as much as you are.
I thought you meant literally all over the place because he moves around a lot, but yes.
I'll see pictures, and one of the reasons, just to give a little bit of background, one of the reasons I asked you to be on this podcast was just because of how involved you are in the community. But your son how old is he?
He's 12.
He's 12. So I'll see pictures of him with the chief of police.
Yes.
And then I'll see him y'all did something one day. It was it iFly or something?
It's at Challenge Air, actually. Yes, when we were up 12,000 feet
yes.
up. Yes.
And y'all are just doing stuff all the time, just as a family. And so this park, for those that don't know, it is over off of Warrior.
Yes, Warrior.
Kind of almost by, if you were to go to Prairie Paws, it's kind of over there.
Right.
And it's in the phase 1.
Phase 1, we just opened phase 1, yes.
Right. And so it's an all-inclusive park.
Yes.
So tell people about it.
Yes, okay. So again, the park was designed, I guess the thing that differentiates this park from other parks is it was designed, the equipment for those with special needs. So if you drive down the road anywhere in any city, there's tons and tons of parks, but none of them have equipment that any special needs person, regardless of their disability, would be able to go and actually use. So with this particular park, no matter what the level of ability is, whether someone's visually impaired, someone has missing limbs, someone's mobily challenged, having intellectual disabilities, anyone would be able to go and use this park. And the beauty of it is that we are promoting that side-by-side play where Caleb with autism can go with one of his mainstream peers, and if they wanted to go and play together, they would actually be able to play together, and that is what sets this park apart from all the other parks that are out there.
You can actually take a wheelchair through the entire part of it, can't
Yes,
you?
you can. There's a ramp that goes all the way around. There's a wheelchair swing there that one of my Miracle League baseball players actually came over and used it for the first time, and we rolled him on there and got him all hooked up and everything, and the look of joy on his face was amazing, because that's not something he had ever experienced before in a wheelchair, to be able to swing. And so yes, he would be. And there's a merry-go-round that you can roll them out onto the merry-go-round to be able to use that. And it's just, there's other things that they can do. There's tactile things that they can touch, because a lot of our kids are very sensory oriented. So we took all of those things into consideration so that when they go out there, they can all have a great play experience.
Isn't there a place where kind of it's where they can kind of go and kind of just kind of relax for a minute? What is it? I can't think of what it's called.
It's actually, we haven't, that's coming. That's one of the new phases that's coming. It's going to be called a tranquility garden.
Okay.
And you're right. Basically what it will consist of is, because, a lot of our kids with autism, and maybe probably some of the other special needs as well, have a tendency to kind of get overworked. I know Caleb does. He gets going, he gets excited, and all of a sudden it's like the excitement keeps going, and he's trying to calm himself down.
Right.
And it's like a little bit of a gap in between those two things happening. So yes, the idea is, as we continue to build out, is that we will actually have a place where they can go, kind of a cool down area, if you will, where they can kind of collect themselves and have a little bit of quiet time, but still be a part of the park facility and everything. And be able to, gather themselves and hopefully be able to go back out and play again.
Can parents go there too?
It
sounds awesome.
Hey, believe me, chasing my son around that park, I've gained all my steps for the day, chasing him around the park. And so, yes, I think I would need to be going in there to cool down a little bit too.
So what do you do? I know that you have your PhD. What do you do for a living?
Well, I'm a consultant, and basically what that consists of is that I go into different organizations that need someone to come in and do team building and to do leadership training. And a lot of my work for consulting actually consists of HR, addressing HR issues. I'm also an HR consultant, and if there's an employee that I need to have a conversation with to say, hey, let's get your performance on track, and the boss doesn't want to do it, they call me. But just being able to go in and to help them to better their organization. So that's primarily what I do. It allows me the flexibility that I need to have a flexible schedule to be available to Caleb and meeting his needs. And then being able to be more involved in the community, which I absolutely love to do.
So is it your company, or do you work for another company?
No, it's just me.
Just you? Just only you?
Yes.
Wow. So how long have you been doing that?
I guess for about, it's 2009, so 11 years.
Wow. Okay, so let me get this straight. So you're a wife, a mother, you went and got your PhD, and then at the same time you were also running your own business.
I know. I never sleep. Everybody asks me, how do you do it? It's like, I just don't sleep.
I know the
Something's
feeling.
got to go, so it's the sleep, okay?
I know the feeling. I was actually reading your blog the other day. Actually, yesterday I was reading your blog, and you talk a lot about that, just about, especially when you go back to school.
Yeah.
It's not easy as parents. It's not easy as adults when you have a job and, to even go back and do that. And when you don't have to have a degree, it's something you're doing because of your own motivations. How do you keep doing it? You talk a lot about that. But.
Yes. Well, it was very interesting because when I first started my PhD, Caleb was just barely not quite 2 years old. And so at that point, so it's manageable. It's manageable. It's the coursework. You have a little more control over how that all works. Because it's very structured and everything. And then as he got older, a couple of years later, he was diagnosed with autism. So everything changed.
Right.
I mean, everything changed. But I had already invested almost 4 years into the program, or 2.5 years, 3 years into the program. So you're already so far into it. You're like, okay, wait a minute.
Yeah.
We got to figure this out because I have to finish this.
Yeah. You talk about the financial investment. You've already invested every time that you go back to school, you keep putting more money into it. And
yes, exactly. And so it was a delicate balance because having to deal with this diagnosis, something completely new, and having to educate myself on autism. I had no clue about autism, nothing about autism, knew nothing about autism. And yet I knew you've got to get up to speed on this, Rhonda, because your son is depending on you so that you can help to best meet his needs and better prepare him for the world, and everything. So trying to do that and trying to do homework, and Caleb sitting in my lap, and one of my favorite pictures is he's sitting in my lap asleep. I'm holding him, and I've got one hand on the keyboard, one arm wrapped around him. There were many, many, many days like that, of just trying to get it all done.
Yeah, I was asking because so I was asking when I was interviewing Dr. Alexander, he did the same kind of thing where he was going back to school, where he was working full time. I said, "How did you do it?" And he said, "My wife typed up my papers for me." And I was like, you don't do it by yourself.
No,
there's no way. And
yes.
so especially when, I think as moms especially, women especially,
yes.
we can tend to maybe multitask a little bit better sometimes.
Yes.
But it also falls on us to feel responsible to do
Yes.
everything.
Yes.
So we were talking about this morning as we got here.
Right.
Just sometimes the pressure that you feel
Yes.
to keep doing everything you need to.
Right.
So was there ever a time that you just wanted to quit?
Oh, many, many, many times. It's just, that process is the most grueling. I think grueling is the best word I can come up with that you will ever experience, because it tests all your limits. I mean, if you think, okay, I'm really good at this, it takes you to that limit, and then you have to go beyond that limit, and you have to ask yourself, well, maybe I wasn't so good at that as much as I thought I was.
Oh
really
my gosh!
Take a hard look at yourself.
Yes.
And and then you're getting feedback from your professors, and they're already PhDs, so they're not going to kind of sugarcoat. They're going to be, well, why did you put that in there? And you're like, oh my God, they're going to think, what?
Well, you were talking about, you don't really think about the dissertation and having to present it and having to have people give you feedback.
Yes.
I was talking to a friend of mine that I just love so much. She also owns a couple of businesses, and we were talking about how women tend to be emotional about that kind of stuff, where we have to be able to hear the feedback, even if it's not always positive, and have to kind of dig down deep and go, okay, how can I get better, or how can I improve? And I think that I don't like to say that men and women are different in that way, but we kind of are.
Yes,
because if you have the positivity and the drive to do something like that, you just think, I can do it all.
Yes.
And then I've kind of gone through my own personal journey of, no, well, maybe let's learn a little bit more, so that must have been hard.
It really does. It's like putting a mirror in your face, and you really have to be very honest with you. But at the same time, while you look at your challenges and the things about yourself that are challenging, you also look at your strengths, and you're like, oh my gosh, math has never been my strong suit ever. And I actually I had a 4.0 in all of my studies, but not that I'm bragging. Well, I am actually bragging.
You know what? I think you should.
I'm bragging, okay? But I got an A in stats, and I never imagined, because I've always had problems with numbers and math, But even that, to recognize that was a challenge that I overcame. So it's like this. You just kind of go through. It's like this weaving of in and outs of, okay, you're really good here, and you need to work on that.
Right.
But there's nothing wrong with that. I think it's just that's who we are.
Well, and when you have that ability, that's when you can grow. That's when you can do a bunch of different things.
Yes.
And then when you have opportunities that present themselves, like having a child with autism, you rise to the challenge, and you're like, okay, well, we just need to learn about this.
Exactly.
I just need to figure it out. So you have not grown up in Grand Prairie.
No.
So where did you grow up?
I grew up in a small town in West Texas called Coleman.
Oh.
And I always tell people, I have to tell people, I reference Abilene because most people haven't heard of Coleman. It's about 50 miles south of Abilene.
Okay.
And there's about 6,000 people there. So
wow.
Yes, I know.
Very small. Yes.
So most of the people that I went to kindergarten with, I actually graduated with. And when does that ever happen? So most people, got to see them grow up and actually follow their lives on Facebook now, so it's like known them all of my life practically. So.
Wow. So when did you move to Dallas or Grand Prairie?
I moved here after I graduated from high school.
Okay.
And to Arlington to go to UTA. So that's what started my Metroplex journey. And then I lived in Arlington for many years, and we actually got a house in Grand Prairie, and that's kind of what brought me here. And, then we have, once Caleb was diagnosed and started school, GPIC has the best special education program of all of our surrounding cities.
Really?
I know that for a fact because I know moms all over the surrounding cities and areas that have kids with special needs, and we all talk about our programs, and they're all like, oh my gosh, I can't believe they're doing that there, because we have a superior program here.
Wow. So where does he go? Which school does he have?
He goes to Truman.
Truman, okay.
He just started 6th grade this year, so it was a whole big change. From he was at Mosley for 5 years at Mosley. 6 years at Mosley, from kinder through 5th. And so new school, new teacher, new everything.
Wow. And that already is an age that is difficult. I mean, not the age is difficult. I mean, being a 12-year-old kid is difficult. Yes, exactly.
Yes. And fortunately, at this point, we haven't experienced all the stuff that I know is coming, you know, with all the hormonal stuff. I always go, la, 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 I hear that. I don't want to talk about that right now. But I think just for him and he actually did better than I did. The new school, he likes it. He likes his new classroom, his teachers. But, just that whole everything changing and being different. The school start time is different. Everything completely different.
Right. Yeah. So how do they do it? Is it because I don't know. I know a little bit about the special needs programs that we have here. Are they in classes with each other, or do they separate it? Do they do it all together? How do they do that?
Well, it depends. It depends on their level of ability. And so for some of our kids, they're self-contained, meaning that their classroom is just all special needs students, which is what Caleb is in. And then they have some that are inclusive, where some of the special needs students are able to go into a gen ed class and spend some time in the gen ed class, a portion of their studying time. And then you have some that are actually infiltrated in a gen ed class all the time, but they usually have like an aide or something with them.
Wow.
So Caleb he's actually in a self-contained class.
Wow, that's really tremendous that we have that type of program.
It really is, and so because it caters to each group's needs. Because with the level that he's on right now, the needs that he has is completely different from a student that can go to inclusion. That may have be able to have more. It's more verbal, or have more cognitive skills, and so it wouldn't benefit him to be in that class right now, because he needs to be working on some other things at a different level.
Right.
And so that's what I love about our program, is that we do differentiate and recognize that our students are different.
Right.
And in meeting those needs for our students.
Yes, and being able to give them the resources to actually have teachers and aides. And I did know somebody that worked as an aide in Grand Prairie, where that was his job. He was with one student all day, and that's tremendous.
Yes. It is.
So do you take him, or does he take the bus? How does that work?
Well, I'm laughing because I was telling you my story about getting him to school this morning. But yes, I do take him to school, and I have always taken him to school. And for me, that's our time together. I give him his little pep talk in the mornings. I pray over his day, and I get to walk him up into the school and tell him that I love him, and Mommy loves you, Daddy loves you, Jesus loves you, and he gets that's how he starts his day. He does ride the bus home. Okay, at the end of the day, okay, you can get home. We'll start you off, okay, but you can get off the bus, okay?
Oh, that's so funny. I did that, yeah. I asked about the bus because I had a friend of mine, and I do know that the bus does drive outside of normal bus for when it comes to special needs. I had a friend of mine we lived on the north side of town. Her son had autism. He went to a school on the south side, but he had a special bus that came and picked him up, and he loved it.
Yes.
The bus driver was amazing, and so he was just super excited. Like she was so nervous to send him, and then he just could not wait to get on the bus in the morning.
Right.
So, but that's nice that you see. That's one of the benefits of being able to work for yourself. Is you get to do that kind of stuff.
And the thing too is that I have to say, when he first started school, I mean, they asked me, of course, in the first argument, do you want him to ride the bus? And of course I said, can I ride the bus with him? They're like, no, but you can follow the bus if you really need to. But his first teacher, did tell me. She said the kids our kids love riding the bus, and so I realize now that that's exactly the case. But it was a hard decision to let him ride, but I'm so glad I did. That's one of the 2 or 3 best decisions I've made for him thus far, because it encouraged his independence.
Right.
He was able to do something, to go back and forth without me being there, someone that he knew, to be able to depend on somebody else to basically to care for him and to take care of him.
Right.
And he's there by himself. You know what I mean? It's just been a great experience for him, and I've watched him grow over the years. Just getting off the bus, getting home and getting off the bus.
Well, I mean, it's hard to let our kids go.
Yes.
I mean, it is,
Yes.
and but you're right. I mean, that's how they learn to. Number one, it's how they learn that they can overcome stuff too, because they have to do it themselves.
Yes.
But it also gives them a sense. And when the kids get to do stuff without you, now you have stuff that you can talk about outside of just being together. Like, I just remember when my daughter, when it was kindergarten or preschool, and I didn't have to send her to preschool, but I did because I was like, she gets to have experiences without me, and that's okay. Yes. It's not easy.
I know. Sometimes you're like, what? He's going to be having all that fun without me. I'm not even there.
Like, what am I going to do with my dinner? Like, I don't know.
But you do feel that sense of pride, you know, like,
you do.
Oh my God, look at my child doing this, and I'm not even there to cheer him on. It's like they were able to find it within themselves.
Right.
That strength and courage within themselves to do something new and try something new.
Oh, yeah, it's a very big deal.
On today's episode, our spotlight is on Brighter Tomorrow's Women's Shelter, a nonprofit organization in Grand Prairie. Their primary goal is to provide emergency, safe shelter where survivors of domestic violence and sexual assault can begin healing. Their services are provided free of charge and are confidential and are offered in both English and in Spanish. Brighter Tomorrows has a 24-hour hotline that is available 7 days a week, 365 days a year, that can be reached at 972-262-8383. If you or anyone you know need the services of this amazing organization or to donate your money or time, please find more information at their website, which is brightertomorrows.net.
When you moved here, you went to UTA. Was it hard to move to like a bigger?
Oh my gosh, no. I couldn't wait. I'm like driving down I-20 for the first time, like, oh, I finally got away. I mean, nothing against my small town, but you know, when you grow up in a small town, all you think about is going to it. Most people is, I can't wait to go to the big city, and so I couldn't get here fast enough. But as you get older and you kind of learn more about life, you do go back to the small town and you have a better appreciation for it. You know,
absolutely.
to be able to kind of calm down and just everybody knows everybody. Go see all your friends that are like family.
And Grand Prairie still kind of has a small town feel to a certain point. Yeah. But like, you're like, there's a Target right there. There's like a Walmart right there. Like, I could just hop on the, you know, it's 2 seconds away. So when you moved here, what did you go to college for?
Actually, it's funny because one of my friends was telling me, you should have been a anchor person, and I was like, you know, actually,
I could see that, totally see that.
It's so funny because that was actually my major when I started at UTA. I was in journalism, broadcast.
Really?
Yes. And you know, back then you're 20, you're like, oh, I think I want, and then you're like, oh, I don't think I want to do that anymore. And then I switched to public relations. That's what my degree is actually in PR.
So when did you graduate high school? You don't have to tell me if you don't want to.
Yeah, I won't. A few years ago.
If you were a Grand Prairie grad, I'd make you tell me, but no, that's fine. No.
My mom would kill me. She doesn't want anybody to know her age, so she threatened us to never tell our age. So
that's hilarious.
When she heard this.
So public relations, that makes sense. And then did you go get your master's after that?
Yes, I got my master's in professional development. Human behavior was my area of specialty.
Wow.
I know. So it's like, okay, you're saying one thing, but I really see what. And then my doctorate is in leadership and organizational change.
Oh, wow. So what made you decide to go back and get your PhD?
Well, really it's more of my master's, because from there, it's kind of like, you know, you get the master's and it's like, okay, well, I guess I probably should keep going. You know, that's kind of what I was thinking. But it was many years in between getting my bachelor's and my master's. And
really?
Yeah, it was a bigger gap there. And I was just at a place in my life, I was still single and no kids, and I was like, you know, I'm ready for the next step, you know, as far as my career and everything. So I decided to get.
I assumed you had like a 9-to-5 job, like an 8 to 5 job.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Everything, even worked my way through school when I was getting my bachelor's, because you know, my dad's like, well, I don't know how you're going to pay for it, but you're going to go to college. Okay, I better go get a job.
Yeah, right.
Really, seriously, I worked the whole time through. But then once I got the master's, and I was like, okay, then really was more of a challenge at that point. It's like, okay, I did this, let me go ahead and work on my doctorate.
Well, it seems like for what you do for a living, that would probably be pretty necessary.
Yes. And I think it's so funny. I was thinking about this, how, a lot of times we're like, oh, I want to get my doctorate. You have this great, brilliant idea, you think, and then you start getting further into whatever it is that you're endeavoring to do, and you realize that it's something that's even beyond just you thinking you wanted to do it. And that's kind of what I found with my doctorate is, yes, the idea came into my mind, but I really, I believe we're all, well, for myself, I'm very spiritual, and I feel like my life is directed. And I feel like while I thought I had the idea and the desire to go back to school, that wasn't intended for my purpose.
Right.
For me to be able to accomplish. Not saying I couldn't accomplish things without it, but there are greater things that I can do with it, the greater influence to open doors and be able to speak and advocate, which is my passion. With it, than I probably could do without it.
Right.
And have more influence, which is important to me for our special needs community.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. And you were, one of the things I saw you do, you spoke one day to a classroom full of students.
Oh, yes.
That was fun to watch.
Yes, oh my gosh. Yes, there was probably when I love being able to speak to the students, and usually I do it around Halloween, whenever they have the favorite book character day, because they don't, celebrate Halloween in the schools. So you get to dress up and everything and go in there, and they do it across all the campuses here in GPIC. But what I always do is go to the special needs classes, the higher functioning class. We were talking about the different levels, so I wouldn't necessarily go to Caleb's class, but I would go to some of the higher functioning classes and read to them, because most people it doesn't even enter their mind that these kids will want to be read to. So I would go in to read to them, and oh my gosh, it's just, I get so much joy out of that, and they're all looking and asking questions, and it's amazing to be able to do that.
It is. I've participated in career days for the past, 5 years, and it is so fun. Yeah. Because the questions that they ask you are so off the wall, you wouldn't even think about it. Like, as far as things that you don't even consider. My favorite question to ask when I go out is, we talk about how I sell houses, and that. And I say, what would you like to see in your house? Trampoline room, like all that stuff. And I love, kids are just, I don't know, when you get to be around kids, there's a hope there. There's like an excitement there. Yes. And it's definitely energizing.
Yes. And just their whole perspective of life. I have to say that, before I had Caleb, I was on my, just on the traditional career path and climbing the corporate ladder, and had all these goals that I wanted to accomplish, and I was doing quite well, in doing all those things, and you feel like life is great, and this is the bee's knees, as they say. This is the way it's supposed to be.
I say that all the time.
And I always think of, do bees really have bees?
I know. I'm like, where does that come from? Or the cat's meow.
Yeah. I know. But then, it's like Caleb came along, and it's like I realized my whole perspective of life was, in my opinion, mine was wrong, because it's like everything is the way I see things is so differently now. And it's like, it's so much more focused on, it's not, I was, you don't realize how much you're so focused on yourself until, in my opinion, until you have kids, and then you realize, oh, wow, I wouldn't have called myself self-absorbed, but at the same time, you're like, oh, I guess because you're just always,
That's because you get to do everything based on what you want, and it's like,
right.
And when I realized, when I went through my divorce, is when I started realizing how much I love my child, based on what you're willing to do to make your child's life happy and better, and that sometimes means that you yourself don't always get the things that you want, but it doesn't necessarily mean that you're miserable. It doesn't mean you're unhappy. It just means there's a whole other level of. It's just like when you're trying to teach yourself how to do something new. It's just a different level of love. Yes. You know what I mean? Just a sacrificial love.
Yes, sacrificial. Yeah. I was thinking the same thing. Yes,
and exactly. It's, I'm a spiritual person too, and, I believe in God, and you have a different understanding and relationship with God.
Yes.
I feel like when you become a parent.
Yes. You're like, oh, Lord, was I really that bad as a child? Because I must have really tried your patience, because you get it when you become a parent. You're like, oh, I'm so sorry for all those times. I must have worn you out.
That's funny. So were you always like civically, because you're very involved in the community, were you always like that, or did that kind of happen?
I think it kind of happened gradually over the years, and it wasn't so much that I set out to say I want to be involved in the community, but as Caleb has gotten older, I've had to become more involved because I want to do everything I can to help to, as I said, to make life better for my son and to best prepare him for this world. And then I don't also advocate for him, but I also advocate for our special needs community. So that means, being available for meetings at the Ed Center with the special ed department, and being that parent that they can call and say, hey, can you speak at the school board because we want to get this new facility for our kids, and we need a parent to go and speak from a parental perspective. So I'm that person. Or being involved with the Playground Project and doing those countless hours of volunteer time, so that we can help to raise the money that we need to be able to get this new park that we just have recently opened and continue to build it out. So it's really more of I'm very service-minded. I have a ministry of helps. It's just a natural thing for me to want to help. So it's actually a good combination of being able to help, and then also I also like to work. I can't go somewhere and not do something. So it's like, okay, here I'm going to volunteer, and I sign up for all things. But the end goal is to make things better for Caleb, to make things better for our community, to make things better, special needs community, and also for our city, and everything.
Yeah.
I just can't sit back and not do anything. I have to do something to make a difference.
Yeah.
It's just ingrained in me to be able to do that,
You are probably, and I have a lot of friends on Facebook, you are probably one of the most active people when it comes to taking advantage of things that the city has to offer. Like, for example, we just went through, was it for Christmas that y'all went to the planetarium for South?
Yes.
And I said, I didn't even know that they did that.
Yes.
But you'll do stuff like that all the time. And I'm like when Caleb got to be chief for a day, didn't know that they did that.
Yes.
You know, it's just so cool. And so, it's one thing when somebody has to be a part of the city. When I interview the mayor or the city councilman or something, okay, yeah, you got to kind of do that. And yes, you have a civic attitude. Yes, you want to do that, but there's a certain part of you that kind of, it's mandatory.
Right.
When you're a person that's just volunteering, it's, it requires a level of actually wanting to make the world a better place. Yeah. So one of the things that I wanted you to kind of talk about was, for people that are just normal, everyday people that are not wanting to run for city council and not wanting to be elected, how do you start getting involved?
Yes,
what did you do?
Well, it's funny because I do a lot of volunteering, not just in our city, but, Habitat, and I love Habitat for Humanity and just different things like that, and feeding programs. And I found as I volunteered that a lot of people really want to get involved, but they don't know how to get involved. And a lot of people are intimidated about getting involved because the thought of them going to, even say for Habitat and go do a build or something, to go to this place, there's nobody that they know, and to do something that they've never done, it's too much for them. So I guess for me, I've kind of worked past that point because I do that. But I think that usually, and that's why I like to post a lot of the things that I do like that, because not to brag, but to help people to say, oh my gosh, Dr. Crowder went and did that. And then a lot of times they'll call me and say, hey, I want to go with you the next time.
Right.
And then they'll go with me, and then once they do it the first time, then they get past that fear, and the next thing you know that they're volunteering. So I think that it's just, if you've got a friend like myself, somebody that does it regularly, that you can maybe do it with the first time, so that you can get past that to do it that way. Or, they have different volunteer organizations that you can sign up with. Sorry, I don't have any off the top of my head, but you can go and sign up for those. And a lot of times it's people that are just like them that have never volunteered before and just want to have a new experience. But I just encourage people to find something. There's meals. There's all kinds of things. If you want to work with the elderly, if you want to work with children, if you want to work with your hands and building, there's tons and tons and tons of things to do. But I think we all have a responsibility to do something, not just to walk around, just sucking up air, if you will, but we all have a responsibility to do something. And yes, we're all busy. And maybe they don't have time to volunteer as much as I do and be as involved as I am, but there's still something, even if it's just one thing that you can commit to doing, and it'll make a difference.
It will. It will. And I think sometimes people have the tendency to not do something unless they're asked.
Yeah.
But I don't think that people really understand that when you are trying to run a nonprofit or a commission for the city or whatever, you hope that people will come to you because you don't have time to go ask everybody to go help you all the time.
Right, you're absolutely right.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so one of the things that I try to do is if people have opinions or are passionate about something, if you're passionate about, even as something like if you're passionate about abortion or something like an issue like that, we have a pregnancy resource center.
Yes.
You can go be an advocate right in your hometown. You can go be a part of that, and you can go help somebody. And so anytime I see somebody post anything about that, or election, issues with like elections, you can go be on the election committee. You can go be as a part of that, and you can help. So a lot of times, I try to challenge people to go find something. And Grand Prairie has a lot of nonprofits, so many more than we probably even realize. And so I think that you just being a mom and a citizen is really good that you're posting a lot of that stuff.
Yes, and I think I understand everybody has their opinions and frustrations and things like that, and that's natural. That's
of course, right.
But I mean, for me, it's like I can only listen to that for so long, and then I'm like, okay, what's going to happen after that? I'll allow you to share those with me to a point, and then it's like, okay, we've got to move past that. And I'm like a next steps person. So what's going to happen next? What's the next thing that we can do? And so I think that we always have to at least come with an idea, or at case in point, with the special ed department, there was an issue years ago with the busing situation, and we got it all worked out, but it was definitely an issue that was happening, and the administrators were not aware of it, which as soon as I brought it to their attention, I said, this is the issue, this is what I'm seeing, what can I do to help? And so they shortly thereafter implemented a new system of being able to find out what's happening with our kids when they're on the bus, and I said, hey, I'll be the test pilot person. So my point is that bring it to, if it's something that needs to be brought to the attention of whomever, bring it to their attention, but then don't just leave it there. Say, okay, what can I do to help make this better? I'm offering myself, my services, to work with you all to make this better for not just my son on the bus, but all the other kids that are riding the bus to get home.
And I think with social media being as it is, it's very easy to, instead of talk to the person that's responsible for the issue, to complain just on social media and say, oh, I'm so upset about blah blah blah. And so my response to that is always, okay, if you talk to the person that's responsible, I'm sure you've seen me say that. And
good point.
I mean, and I'm like, because I'm sure that they would want to know, but it really is easier for people than I think that they really understand. And people, the thing about it is that so many people are willing to let you come in and help. And what people ask me sometimes, how do you, like, Mayor Jensen, for example, when I asked him, I'd never even done a podcast before. When I said, will you do this? And he said, yes. And they say, how did you get him to do that? I'm like, I asked him.
Right.
It's really that simple. Sometimes just saying, what can I do to help?
Right. Yes, that was what we experienced. You were talking about the chief for the day. That's what we experienced with Caleb. Chief Dye, amazing, wonderful person, and just reached out to him and said, hey, it was my son's, it was actually on his birthday, my son's birthday. And I said, and then one of the things with Caleb's goals, because our kids have their own individual goals if they're special needs, and I said one of his goals is to be able to recognize those in the community that are authority figures, so that if something happens, God forbid, we get misplaced, he gets misplaced, he will recognize a police officer based on the uniform and so forth. So I said, not only is it his birthday, but that's one of his goals, and would you be willing for me to have Caleb come in and maybe be chief for the day? And he said, yes, of course. He said, of course. I mean, no hesitation or anything.
Wow.
But I think it's like you said, I think it's just the asking part and looking for those different things within our community, because we have tons of them, to see, okay, what can we tap into? And a lot of times they're free. I mean, I'm always looking for free,
as we all are.
Right. But it's just been great. And one of my goals is to expose Caleb to, because people are always asking us about, you guys are always on the go, my goal in doing that is to expose him to as many things, as many people, as many situations, life situations as possible, because we as a community, special needs community, sometimes tend to kind of shelter our kids. I mean, and I get it, you know, because we don't want them to be bullied, we don't want them to be made fun of, we wonder how people are going to respond to them in public and wonder why they're doing that or acting certain ways. So I understand that. But at the same time, from my perspective, it's very important he needs to know how to go and be in a restaurant full of other people, and he needs to be able to go and interact with a police officer. He needs to be able to get on an airplane and go up in the air 15,000 feet and have a new experience. Because I think it's just going to make him a better person, a more well-rounded person. Mm-hmm. Because at some point he's going to be an adult. He's not going to be little Caleb forever, you know. And so I always look for those opportunities, and then to support the city at the same time.
Yeah.
You know, with all the things because our city does awesome things for families.
Yes, and you want them to know, like, hey, by the way, we know you spent all this money on playground. We're using it.
I know.
We really enjoy it.
Yes.
Well, that brings up a good point. I'm glad that you kind of brought this up. This was a conversation that I had with my friend. I told you that I have a friend of mine, her son has autism. Mm-hmm. And one of the questions that I have a lot is, when you don't have a child mm-hmm. that has special needs, I would ask her a lot of questions about, you know, because I had a daughter that was about the same age. Mm-hmm. And so when we would get them together, I'm like, please tell me how I explain to my child how do we handle relationships that look different with your peers. So, you know, I don't know if you could speak to that, but I think that even asking and starting conversations with each other about how to have more empathy and understand, you know, how can I teach my child how to interact with other people in the world too.
Yes.
So
and I love that because I think it starts with the question. You know, I think it starts with the desire to know more and the knowledge to realize that okay, this child is different. This is a different situation, and not just that this child is something wrong with him and just leaving it there, but to say what can I do to adapt my thoughts so that when I'm around that child, I'll know how to have a better interaction with him, and then to share that, you know, to pass it on to your child. But I think probably the best way that I can think about that question is Caleb has a few friends that are mainstream kids, you know, and everything, boys. And when they play with him, it's just the most amazing thing. There's two scouts. Their mom's name is Sharon, and she'll know who she is when she uses. But when they get with him, it's like they don't try to adapt. They don't try to get Caleb to adapt to their play. They adapt to Caleb's play. So if Caleb's running over here, they're running over here with Caleb. If Caleb is jumping, they're jumping. They're just kind of modeling what they see him doing.
Right.
Because Caleb is not always aware and cognizant of what they're doing or what they would want him to be doing. He's just playing because he's just kind of in his own mind of play, you know.
Right.
So the fact that they're just so conscious of what he's doing and they're engaging him too. Caleb, come over here. Caleb, let's go do this, you know, and everything. And it's as a parent, I can't tell you, it's something that is so simple as play, and that's why this park is so important to me to see your child. It's almost like that moment where you can't differentiate between the gen ed and the SPED, the special education person. I mean, they're just right there together.
Right.
And they truly are having a side-by-side play experience. So I think just educating your child is just kind of do what they're doing. You know what I mean? Kind of see what they're doing and supporting them in that way.
Right. And it was interesting. Whenever he was littler, he had some issues with boundaries with other people, just hair pulling or maybe stuff like that. And it's interesting to try to explain to your child that this is not because they're being mean.
Yes.
You know, and how to explain that's hard when you're trying to talk to a 4-year-old about that.
Yes.
And that's when we would just and the more that they played together, the more that she just started to learn maybe some of his, you know, personality and stuff like that. But it also had to do with his mother's openness to talking about it. Yes. And she shares a lot of stuff on Facebook, and I think that the parents have a lot to do with that.
Yes.
Being really open.
Yes. I agree to be because we can't expect. I mean, thankfully we have things like Autism Awareness Month in April, and I think there's a much greater push for awareness, and I think that that's been a really great thing. But there's still a big gap between the special needs community and just the regular community of that level of understanding. But I think the fact that somebody like myself that's out there talking about it and saying these are the things that you can do to support us and these are the things that we need, and just being able to have that willingness for those that are listening to have the willingness to say, well, your child's just different. You know, there has to be a willingness on both parts, a willingness on the parent, the special needs parents, to be able to talk about it, and then a willingness on the other part of the community, to be able to listen, and then meet somewhere in the middle, because we can't all have what we want, you know.
I know. We're all trying to live in this world with each other, and everybody's different.
Yes.
But one of the things that I love about watching you is that there can become a tendency, whatever our challenges are, whether we have, you know, several children that we're trying to take out and do stuff, whether you have a child that's special needs, whether you have a child that's little, there's challenges to getting out and doing things all the time.
Yes.
And it can be really easy just to isolate yourself in your house and be like, it's too hard. I don't want to have to drag them around everywhere.
Right.
But you are so good about just doing it all the time. And you do it all the time.
Dr. Rowe on the go.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. But you do stuff without him too.
Yes, I do. You're right, I do. Yes.
So you do get a chance to get out and do a lot
on
of that.
occasion I do. But it's so funny because I'm so used to him being with me all the time. When he's not with me, I probably don't enjoy it as much because I'm like, oh, I miss Caleb. But yes, I do that. Like I said, I think it's important to get him out. And you know, even with the volunteering, I mean, that's my heart and passion. As I said, I have a ministry of helps, and giving is just a natural part of me to want to help and to give. And even though Caleb has his challenges with autism, I still want to believe that I'm instilling that in him, because every time I volunteer, a lot of times, especially with Playground, he's with me. You know, sometimes he might be helping me hand out stuff, sometimes he might be sitting, but he's there, and I want him to grow up with that mentality of I remember my mom we were always somewhere helping people. Yes. It's very, very important to me.
It absolutely is. And I think that with children, they need to see us working. They need to see what it looks like that we work. They need to see what it looks like that we volunteer. They need to see what it looks like as we talk to other people, how we interact with them, and how we are able to compromise and to come to a greater goal. And whether or not we say those things to them, they see it.
We're modeling it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I was talking to Jeff Copeland, and he was talking about how Sandy used to take him around all the time to all the different events that she was doing. And she never said it out loud, but it just became a part of his DNA, like as an adult. And I didn't think about that with my own child, but I thought that's exactly what I'm doing, is she sees me, you know, do that. So speaking as far as, because you're a business owner, you're an entrepreneur, how difficult is that for you? Have you found it to be challenging?
You mean as far as
starting a business and running a business on your own?
Yes. I mean, you know, of course, there's always those challenges. Because, you know, I think the main thing, you're just constantly having to tweak it. I guess if it was somebody else's company, you just kind of go in and do what they tell you to do. But if it's your own, you're having to tweak, and you're having to say, okay, well, maybe I should have taken taken on this project, or it looked good at the beginning, but now I've got all these other things that I'm accountable to.
Oh my gosh, yes.
You know, but I think the benefits outweighs the challenges, in that you still have that level of flexibility that you need, you know, to be able to say, well, I think this is going to be good for you, or maybe that's, you know, maybe that's more money, but this is maybe not the best thing for me right now, or, you know, talking about the scheduling and so forth. But there's always those challenges, definitely.
Do you feel like you're always, because I know that I feel like this, but do you feel like you're always trying to reassess your priorities, like every day?
Yes, every day. Oh my gosh. Yes, and the thing about having a special needs child is I think you become a master planner. I mean, I really, and even in that, like this morning, I was telling you, I had it all in my mind, and then I'm like, oh, I gotta go get lunch for Caleb because he's going to the, you know, it's like you try to, but you have to be more conscientious of what you're doing, what's happening with your day, and where you need to be. And I mean, you have to think of everything. And then even with that, you know, things come up, or you maybe didn't think of something else, and then you suddenly have to adjust. So it's like this constant thing going on in your mind.
Yes.
I mean, it's constant of where you need to be. It's just kind of like a chess game that's happening all the time.
I liked what you said about, you feel like you take on that project, it's going to be a good thing, and then it turns out to be something you didn't even anticipate.
Right.
I don't know about you, but I mean, you seem like a really positive, like, oh, I can do that. And I'm the same way, and then I'm like, what was I thinking?
I know. Oh oh my gosh, Lord, give me help. Yes,
I look around sometimes and I'm like, because we're talking about volunteering and being involved.
Yes.
Well, there is a chance that you could really overstep that and become so involved that like your life is completely consumed.
You're right.
There has to be a balance.
Yes.
Do you struggle with that?
Yeah, I do. I mean, I did so more before, but now I've kind of learned to have that balance. And because it is, like I said, it's such a natural part of me to want to give. I get so much pleasure out of it. I mean, people are like, habitat, you're hammering. It's like, but you just don't understand what that means to me to know, because as I'm hammering, I'm thinking that this is a house that I'm helping to build for a family that's going to be here, for many years to come and have memories. I mean, I have this whole picture in my mind,
Yes.
And so it's like, so if it were up to me, seriously, if it were up to me, I would do Habitat for Humanity at least 2 or 3 days a week. I love it that much. I love it that much. Or I would go and feed the homeless, or I would, I would just do that. But I know that I can't because I've got other obligations and everything. So yes, I have to really kind of reel myself. I'm signing up online for Habitat, and I'm like, okay, wait, Rhonda, look at your calendar. Have to. Okay, I'll take it back. But definitely having to be more aware of, okay, I love to do this, but I also am obligated to, my son is my number one priority, and of course my home and my husband and so forth. So, and even the word no, I don't know if do you struggle with that? That's also.
Never. No, I'm just kidding. That's all the time. All the time.
How did you do that?
No, all the time.
Yes, I think for me that's probably the bigger challenge than even overextending myself from the things that I enjoy doing. It's like the volunteer, as I mentioned, is when people want you to do something and you really want to do it, but you really know you should say no.
Especially when they see that you are a very good person to work with, you're very outgoing, you're very positive, you're very capable. Like when you become that person in your community, you start getting asked to do a lot more stuff. And then you have to say, listen, I would love to do that, but I cannot.
Right.
There's no way that I can add another thing. I'm learning that now.
Yes.
And it's not been easy. Do you find that, does your husband, like, do y'all have a lot of conversations about that? Or did he know this about you?
Yes, he knows. And the thing is that he encourages that, because he knows that it truly gives me so much joy to be able to go out and help. And so we really rarely have an issue where he's like, well, on occasion, of course, he's like, well, what? I thought I was going to get to do, What do you mean you got a meeting tonight, another meeting tonight, one of those kind of things. But for the most part, he knows that brings me joy. And a lot of times Caleb is with me too, so.
Right. Does it energizes me too, but every so often if I really, really just go too far, I burnt out. I just I kind of stop, and I'm like, okay, I gotta figure something else out here, because I look around, I'm like, how did I get to be a part of all of this stuff? Like, there was a period where I was involved with Rotary and the Historical Organization, the Women's Club, like all this stuff, and I look around, and I'm like, how did I join every single thing? And not only that, but I'm on the board of every single thing too. And it's like, you can't just do that. And it's so hard. Because just like you, I visualize, it's just this visual thing. And it's like, that's how I can start doing something like that, because I see the end result so easily. And it's just hard.
And you know the level of impact that you can have when you are working with those organizations. So, and you can think, if I do this and I take these skills that I have and I know these people and I connect them, so you have it all worked out in your mind. But you're right, at some point you're seeing that with 5 different other places, and the next thing you know, you're like, oh.
That's, you just made a really good point. I actually, I just wrote a course about training people how to do an estate sale business. But like, I talk about connecting people. I talk about that. And you just mentioned that. So like, that is one of the things that does come from being able to be a really active person in your communities when you start learning more people. So do you do that a lot? Do you find yourself like
Yes, I'm like, and that's even part of the kind of the taking on too much in a sense, because you are that person. They're like, I know I need to find somebody that does this. So you're probably the person that people call, and you're like, okay, and then like this person's calling and this person's texting and this person's emailing. I'm like, oh my God.
So it's not just me then.
No. Oh my God.
Just in this last week, I swear I had somebody ask me, do I know a lawyer? Do I know an accountant? And I'm like, yes, I probably do, but I would have to.
I know.
And then I forget that people ask me, and I feel terrible.
I'm like, I know somebody texted me about, or somebody Facebooked me about something, and you know, or they put it in a comment on something you posted, and I'm like, oh my God, who was that? And I think I'm not responding to them, and I can't find it, and hopefully they'll ask me again.
When I was asking Mayor Jensen about how he keeps up with all that, he's like, I have a really good assistant.
Yes.
I'm like, yeah, that's true.
Yes.
You know, I do not have a really, I don't have somebody that's just constantly behind me taking care of that. But that's so funny. So, where do you think your positivity comes from?
Well, I think part of it is I have this childlike enthusiasm about life and view of life. You know, I think that anytime something happens, my first instinct is always to look at the positive, to look at the good, whether it's with people, you know, situations, things that are happening, even when it's maybe not something that's not most favorable that's happening, but I always try to find the good in it. And I think a lot of that comes from my faith and knowing that all things work together for our good, that there's good in everything, even in the bad, that it's, at some point the good's going to work its way up to the top. And we were talking about, you had asked me about my smile earlier. And I was thinking about that, you know. I was like, why do you smile a lot?
You do.
Every once I've tried to not smile, but I start laughing.
Why would you try to not smile?
Well, because I have friends that they take these lovely pictures and they're not smiling. I'm like, I want to do that, but I always look really like I'm not feeling well. I'm sick or something. But one of the things I realized when you asked me that question, because I really thought it, I was like, you know, I think a lot of times, obviously I'm smiling a lot of times when I am truly happy. But even when I'm not happy, I smile because it makes me happy. It makes me feel better when I smile. And so if I'm not having such a great day and I look in the mirror and I smile, it lifts my spirit. So it's almost like ministry to myself.
Yeah.
And of course, you know, when you smile with other people, then they smile back and that makes you feel better. So it's like all this stuff is happening when you're smiling, you know?
And it's hard because, like, if you're a person, I would say that I'm a pretty positive person too. When you don't have that smile.
Yes.
I remember I was a restaurant manager at Texas Roadhouse, actually. And on the days that, if I was thinking, I wasn't even in a bad mood.
Right.
But if I was not joyous and excited, and I was like thinking about, okay, I need to order this, I need to order that. People are like, are you okay? Is everything all right?
Yes.
Am I in trouble?
Yes.
You know, and it made me realize I have to be aware of the image that you're putting out to the world. And not that I need to be worried about it, but
I
like,
yes,
yeah.
totally.
But it also, you don't know who you're affecting.
Yes.
You know, because I don't know, would you have thought that somebody would have seen that about you? You know, that's what led me to be really interested in you. And because there's tons of people online, and there's so many things that you could pay attention to.
Yes.
And I am so much more attracted to the positive smiling than I am the negative.
Yes.
The negative literally sucks it out of me.
It does. It just drains you. Right.
I noticed that if I'm in a bad mood and I'll call a friend, they're like, what were you just looking at? I'm like, oh, I got sucked into the vortex of Facebook.
Yes.
You know, and we got
Right.
to talk about this. And I realized I've got to be very cognizant of what I put into my brain.
Yes.
Even just images. So it's like if I'm looking at you smiling with your son,
Yes.
and I'm like, oh, y'all just went and did something really cool. It really even has an effect even in that way. So
yes, you're right. And it's so funny you said that about the picture of Caleb and me, because when I see you with your daughter, and you guys remind me of us when y'all are out doing stuff together, it makes me smile too. And it's something physiologically happens when you have that smile and you see the picture, and it just does make you feel better. At least it does for me. I mean, I can feel that I feel better on the inside.
Well, and it makes you feel like, I felt like there was something in you that you and me, there was something about us together.
Yes.
And I think that you can have even that connection. I don't think that people sometimes understand how much their image, their aura, their attitude comes out in so many things.
Yes.
And I mean, one of the reasons I set out to do this podcast was to find people like you that were just in our community, that were positive, that were all these things, so that I could talk to them. And just the smile is a big deal, So it's really neat to watch you guys. It's really, really neat.
So let me ask you, so talking about the smile, feel a greater level of accountability when you are having such a great day? Because I may start my post, because I do my daily post for a positive post. And I normally don't post anything negative, but I may be saying, kind of go in there a little bit, and then I'll be like, oh my gosh, people are always talking about my positive posts. I'll be like, erase. Oh, it's such a lovely day. But I do feel like a greater sense of accountability, because people do look, when they know that you're that way, they look for that from you.
Yes.
And people say, oh my gosh, thank you for that. I needed that today. Thank you for that positive post. Thank you for that smile. Thank you for that compliment. But I like being held to that higher standard of positivity.
Yes, I completely, yes, absolutely. And I've learned, and I've kind of had to learn that who the people are that I can go to that will not judge me and who will understand that this is just me having a bad day. Not to say that I need to always, because I believe in being genuine too.
Yes, absolutely.
I don't want to be fake,
right,
and so there's a level of like, I don't just want to put a smile out there just because I'm just trying to be fake, but but I try to be genuine and transparent, but then also to understand not everybody needs to know every single thing. And so it's like, I have to go to the people that I can talk to,
Exactly, right. To get that, for me, it's like a restoration. The people that you can talk to, where you can just be yourself. I mean, your open self, true self. And like you said, they won't judge you, and then will help to restore you. It's a bit of restoration that takes place, even in just sharing with them and talking with them and knowing that you can trust them to be able to handle whatever it is that you are going through at that time.
Right.
And then after that happens, then you are restored, and then you are able to put that genuine smile back out there and be able to go on your way with the positivity.
And those are my own personal, that's my own personal feelings about like how my life is going. One of the things that I have to be very aware of is there's certain lines I will not cross when it comes to, I do not talk about people.
Yes.
Like if I find that we're going down that path,
yes.
Even if I agree with you, we're not doing it.
I agree.
So I have to always, that is something that I don't even have to think about. That's just something that I have to be aware of all the time is what am I doing to either make the situation that we're in right now better or make it worse.
Yes.
And when it comes to me and my own personal life and things going on, that's one thing. But when it comes to being responsible to your city or to your church or to your organization, I just don't go there. I don't know about you, but
no, I agree. I mean, and making fun of people. I mean, there's different things too, because it's. I mean, to me, it's like, what is there any profit in this? And if the answer is no, then don't do it. You know, other than just being mean, mean-spirited, Right. How's this going to help the other person? How is it going to benefit them in any way? Or even in the things that you say to people,
Yes. And even with the people that are like elected officials in our community, and even with people like that, sometimes I have to take a step back and be like, yes, I understand that people have opinions, but I also have to understand that these people are regular people too.
Yes.
And they have put themselves on the line. So like I try to be really, really cognizant about that.
Yes, I agree.
You and I get along really well.
Oh, yeah.
I knew that we would.
I know.
I knew that we would. But I just want to thank you so much for coming today.
Gosh.
I really appreciate
How much fun has this been?
I know.
Thank you.
I know. You need to come co-host with me sometime.
I know. I would love that.
That would be awesome.
I would love that.
Thank you so much for joining me.
You're welcome. Thank you, Jenna.